629, in the aftermath of Super Tuesday, one of the huge stories that came out nationally was because of congressional redistricting, Dennis the Menace Kucinich, that's right, boy mayor of Cleveland, went on to become congressman, presidential candidate, lost a primary challenge by a Democrat in a redistricting, a redrawing of the map that went from West Cleveland, which is what he used to represent, and squiggled its way all through Ohio, all the way to Toledo, where Joe the Plumber became the Republican nominee. Imagine, it would have been Dennis the Menace Kucinich if he had won against Joe the Plumber. And you scratch your head and say, how can a district go from two major urban areas, Cleveland to Toledo? Population loss, huge population loss. And that's what's happened in New York State. As a result of that, new congressional lines have to be drawn, and there's all kinds of mishigash. Nobody seems to be happy, so let's get an update on all of that from Morgan Pehme, Executive Director of New York Civic, one of the city's leading good government groups. Good morning, Morgan.
Good morning, Curtis. How you doing?
Okay, because people have had their appetites whet by the prospect of seeing Dennis the Menace Kucinich go out because of redistricting and Joe the Plumber be able to run in a congressional race. Explain why there are so many problems with that same process here in New York State.
Well, redistricting may seem like something that's wonky and beyond the interests of most of your listeners, but we actually have a pretty insane system in this country, and particularly in our state, where our elected officials get to draw the lines of the districts that they represent so that they can ensure that they are elected every single cycle. So before we even have a chance to vote at the ballot box, our elected officials every 10 years draw the lines that are going to be the best for them. And as good government advocates, what we're trying to do is change the system so that an independent commission will select the lines that the different elected officials would represent instead of them selecting the lines for themselves.
Okay, but this recent round of controversy, at least nobody seems to be happy with the way the lines are drawn, neither Republicans or Democrats, has led to a judge, someone in black regal robes, who has to make the determination. Can you explain what has happened as that process you described has been stymied and it's been put into the hands of a judge?
That's right. Well, there are two sets of lines that are at play. There are lines for the congressional offices and there are lines for the state offices. On the congressional level, our state legislature, which is charged with drawing the lines, couldn't even draw lines. We are one of two states in the union that still do not have lines, New York and Florida. And here in New York, our legislature wasn't able to come to any type of compromise to draw any type of lines because the Republicans are trying to stave off political extinction by drawing the lines a certain way, and the Democrats are trying to protect their interests in the best way that they can by drawing the lines in a certain way. So ultimately, this situation had to go to a special master judge, Judge Mann, who drew her own set of maps based upon criteria which, for the most part, good government groups think are fair for a change, which is, a very pleasant surprise. Judge Mann started with the lines drawn with the current congressional districts and took into account the extraordinary lines that the good government group Common Cause drew on their own accord and made lines that for the first time look like actually compact districts, like rectangles and squares, as opposed to these incredible snaking districts that take into account, that combine all these different divergent areas like you were talking about in Ohio. So, Judge Mann has actually done a really admirable job in drawing lines that might be representative of the people's interests instead of the politicians.
All right, but Morgan, you mentioned the two states with the most problems in redistricting, New York, which has lost population, to Florida, which has gained population because a lot of the folks who have packed their bags and left from New York have become snowbirds permanent, meaning they've picked up and they've left not just because they're senior citizens in retirement, but they've gone south of the Mason-Dixon line to the Sunshine States. So those states have gained congressional districts. We've lost congressional districts. So it would make sense that nobody wants to lose their district if you're taking districts away. So explain the process. How many districts have been taken away in New York State, and how many congressmen or women are going to have to end up battling one of their friends in order to stay in office?
Well, currently we have 29 congressional seats, but we're about to go down to 27. So we're losing 2 congressional seats because our relative population growth in New York State has been stagnant compared to places like Texas, where they're going to be adding a number of seats. And so, basically because the Republicans and Democrats work together on this process, they've decided that they're going to eliminate a Republican seat from a Democratic seat from upstate, and they're going to eliminate a Republican seat from downstate, which currently looks like it's going to be Bob Turner's seat in Queens because he was the last person to get elected in a special election, and they tend to sort these things out based upon seniority. And so, it's unfortunate that New York is losing congressional power by having our number of seats reduced. In fact, I heard yesterday that New York will have the fewest seats in Congress proportionally since the building of the Erie Canal.
Right,
So
and look,
New York,
let's face it, rightfully so. People have fled this state, and they've been fleeing it for quite some time. We don't get that sense here in New York City because for everyone that leaves, there's somebody else who's coming in, whether it's illegal aliens, Euro trash, someone else that fills the void. But in the rest of the state, you go from central New York to western New York, it's like ghost towns in some areas.
yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. And we actually changed another law in this last legislative session that eliminated prison gerrymandering, because for the longest time the population of upstate New York was being boosted by the fact that people arrested downstate and incarcerated upstate were counted as upstate residents, despite the fact that they were hardly residents there on their own, on their own volition. So now we finally righted that wrong, and we're counting people where they live. But you're right. You go upstate, and in a lot of towns, it's a really sad state to see.
All right, now, finally, for all those who are so confused by all this conversation about redistricting, because it can't spin your head like a top, you're having a forum on Tuesday night. Where is it taking place?
We're doing a joint forum with the Baruch College School of Public Affairs. The forum will be at Baruch in the Performing Arts Center at 55 Lexington Avenue. And New York Civic is co-sponsoring this event with Common Cause New York. And Susan Lerner, the executive director of Common Cause, will be speaking there along with Professor Doug Muzzio. And Common Cause has just been a tremendous leader in this effort. And I really urge people to come learn about redistricting because this is the protection of our democracy.
Well, I would much rather have a drunken sailor judge draw the lines than the crooks who lead both parties. Dean, the Greek Skelos, the Republican leader from Nassau County, and actually Speaker of the Assembly, Sheldon Silver, a.k.a. Meyer Lansky, a.k.a. Hyman Roth.